Welcome to Late of the Rings, a podcast dedicated to Lord of the Rings the card game. My name's John, and here's my co-host. His name is Brago. He was my cousin's horse. It's Em.
Hello, John.
Bit of an obscure one, that one, I'm afraid.
Okay, hold on. All right, so hi, everybody. So Brago was Aragorn's horse,
Yes.
right? Now, that line, I guess, is that line from the book then?
No,
Rather
no. It's and actually,
Is it from the film?
it's from the film because Brago,
I don't remember that.
as a horse, isn't in the books. I mean, Aragorn does have a horse. We've seen it in the artwork. But
Oh, okay. So when it's going wild in the stable,
that's right.
and somebody says,
It's Eowyn.
"Oh, it's Eowyn. It's Eowyn's." Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Of course, yeah, because it was what's his face is Theodred's
Theodred's
horse. Yeah. Hey, yeah, I'm all over this.
But Brago, yeah, like he's because I looked him up because I just recently watched Two Towers. I don't know if you've seen it, and I thought, oh, Brago, is that because I thought that'll be fun. I'll call M Brago. I thought I'll just check how he is in the book, and he's not in the books. Not in the books. It's not. He's an artistic licensed horse. But Brago is the name of one of the first kings of Rohan. I'd like to pretend I knew this, but but I found that out when I was looking up the horse. I learnt my Rohirrim history whilst looking up horse names.
You see what you learn when you do this. I know two things about Brago, but not from the story. Just from do you remember in the original DVD, Unsurpassed package of DVDs, the original one, the
Theatrical
full length version. No, the full length version.
Okay, yeah.
Which came in those. There was like a green one.
Oh
a
yeah,
red
yeah,
one,
in the
and a
cardboard,
gold
and
one.
it all folded out.
Yeah, yeah,
Folded out into a good sort of 2.5 meter.
yeah. Like, amazingly packaged up.
Yeah.
Like, much better than any of the. Well, I'm not sure if it's been released anywhere else, but certainly here in the UK, that was definitely the best sort of package one, I guess. But in there, they had like 4 discs for each film, and there was a whole bunch, like stacks and stacks and stacks of extras behind the scenes. So yeah, it's quite a lot to get through. I watched a bunch of those, and I remember that one about you know that bit where Brago basically saves him from the banks of the river.
Yeah, but I love that scene because he's dreaming of Arwen kissing him, and then there's Brago's face. And it's like, it's a little awkward.
This is a good dream.
But sorry, I interrupted you. But yeah, that's what
I love how they did that whole thing. By the way, and it adds to that mystery of how do you introduce the magic of the elves into the film. And I thought that was done really beautifully, through dream and through somehow they seem to control water to some extent through their magic and horses. They can speak to horses, all that cool stuff. But that scene, so Viggo Mortensen actually had to train with that. Apparently it was really dangerous. I remember that from the extras. It was a really dangerous move that they had to do. So the horse was lying down and he had to get on the horse. And then the horse rises up with him on the back. And apparently that was one of the most dangerous stunts in the whole thing. Because a horse, when it's down, like all it has to do is kind of just roll over and just going to crush you, basically.
Yeah.
So he was very brave and he did it, kind of nailed it. But it was a really amazing story, which is about, there are obviously a lot of horses involved in the filming of that trilogy. And they just summoned all of the horse riders that they could in New Zealand.
Summoned them?
Yeah, they mustered them.
Yes.
I should have said. And they had some specialised horse trainers for the horses which were working with the actors. So these horse trainers had to work with, they had a couple of actors, a couple of horses each. Anyway, long story short, there was this trainer. She was fairly young. I think it's like early 20s, something like that. And she was working with Viggo Mortensen and the horse, which is Brago. And she got really, really attached to Brago because the horse that was portraying Brago. Yeah. Probably in the credits somewhere. I should imagine. And anyway, so they got really attached. And at the end, they had to sell everything off that they could to recoup as much money as possible. It was a hugely expensive thing to make those films. So they sold off the horses they bought. So she was completely, beside herself with with grief and losing Brago, who's become really close to. And as it turned out, Viggo Mortensen bought the horse and then gave it as a gift to the trainer. And she's telling the story, and she's in floods of tears as she's telling the story.
Yeah, because do you know what? You know why she was in floods of tears? She lives on a council estate. So
It's got a horse.
it's just got a horse.
It's such a cynic. It's unbelievable. My sister, I remember watching it with my sister, and then my sister said, "I think I fancy Viggo Mortensen even more now."
Well,
so
does Brago.
Yeah, poor Brago. He was a heartbroken one. So who are you? I want to stay with Viggo. No. Anyway, yeah, that's as much as I know about Brago.
To be fair, that's quite a lot.
That's not bad.
I just thought it'd be funny to say that you were my cousin's horse.
Your cousin in New Zealand. Oh, God. How are you, John?
I'm all right, I suppose. No, I'm good. Yeah, we're recording again, like really on schedule. Not that we have a schedule. Schedule or schedule? What do you say? I think it's meant to be schedule, but I think the Americanisms have crept in enough to call it schedule now. I sometimes just feel more comfortable that way.
I pick and choose. I think.
Okay, well, we are on schedule for releasing the podcast.
Schedule. I say schedule. I've just realised. Sorry.
We are on schedule for releasing the podcast a bit more regularly, which is great. But because of that, there hasn't been much time between the last recordings and editing the last podcast, so I haven't really done that much. I've been playing the game quite a lot. I've finally finished playing through the Hobbit saga. So both boxes of the Hobbit I played back to back. I'm not going to go into any spoilers because we will at some point hopefully cover the saga series as well. But I enjoyed it, but I'm glad it's done.
Yeah, it was time consuming end to end, I guess.
Yeah, and I'm glad to be back focusing on going through the sort of the main cycles, to be honest. I took a little break away from them to do The Hobbit, and I'm now very ready to get my teeth back into opening up new adventure packs. I just want to get more player cards, I want new player cards, and I want new adventures. I mean, as much as The Hobbit it's a very well structured expansion, of course, but it's a story we know. So I just want to see sort of something fresh. So yeah.
And you think you're a bit more constricted there, aren't you? Because you've basically got to just play each one after the other.
Yeah.
It's a level story. Whereas you can obviously do that with the cycles, which we're looking at, but you're much more free to go back and do other quests and try different decks with the same quest and all of that jazz.
Yeah.
That's one of the good things I really like about the game, actually. You're free to do what you want.
Yeah, I mean, that's it. I mean, the thing is, what I like about the game, same as what you just said, is that being able to kind of make up your own sort of weird combinations of characters that go on these adventures. And with The Hobbit, yeah, of course, you're allowed to make up any fellowship of heroes that go on the Hobbit adventure, but you feel like perhaps you should do it completely thematically. And in fact, I think actually the insert in the box suggests that you really shouldn't use characters which weren't born in the Hobbit era and things like that, which I kind of do agree with. But at the same time, it's like, yeah, but this is not as fulfilling in my mind. But hey, look, then we are now discussing the Hobbit saga.
We'll come to
it. And how about yourself, sir? Have you been up to anything fun?
Not an awful lot. As you say, it's only been, I guess, a few days since we released the last episode and recording now. I mentioned that I was reading The Sandman.
Yes, sir.
And I finished that. And so I started reading it again because that's how much I enjoyed it. And it was worth, because there's so much happened, it was worth reading again, and I'm enjoying that again, but that'll be over soon. So that's consumed quite a bit of my time. It's not often I'll read something twice, generally.
Yeah.
I can probably count on the fingers of 2 hands the amount of books I've read twice.
How many hands have you got?
Yeah. Well, you should have asked how many fingers I've got. I was to say both hands. But yeah, anyway, Lord of the Rings being one of those exceptions, actually. And I think I might have even read The Hobbit twice, funnily enough. Once as a kid and once as an adult. But apart from, I've been playing a bit as well. So yeah, last few weeks have been great. So really been getting back into playing a game, having a bit more time to do that. So it's been great. So yeah, right back in the swing of things.
Yeah, so what you're basically saying, or what we're both saying here, is that when we're consumed by making a Lord of the Rings card game podcast and playing Lord of the Rings the card game, we haven't got much time to be doing other things
Yeah.
which to talk about on our Lord of the Rings card game podcast.
Yeah, true. Well, nothing I can remember. It'll probably come to me in about half an hour's time, so I'm sure.
Okay, well, with that in mind, shall we talk some more about Lord of the Rings the card game?
Let's do it.
Okay, so as I think everyone knows, we finished off the first cycle with the last episode, so now we're moving into the first deluxe box, which is Khazad-dûm. And we had to decide how we're going to structure these episodes. And it's not a radical departure by any stretch of the imagination, but what we've decided is that we will focus on a deluxe as a complete set. So we will basically be looking at the deluxe box in a sort of similar way as we looked at the core set. So we'll look at all the player cards that we get with the deluxe box, and then we'll go through all the quests that come in the deluxe before we move on to the cycle, talking about player cards and, of course, the cycle quests. So that's what we've decided. By the time we get to the next deluxe box, that decision might be proven to be the wrong thing to do. But for now, that's what we're going to do, and we'll see how it pans out.
Ever onward.
Very good. So this episode, we are going to look at the player cards that come with that first deluxe box, which is Khazad-dûm. So, well, for a start, may I just say that I was very excited to get this deluxe box because when I was first collecting, obviously I got the core set and I managed to get all the APs from the first cycle. But Khazad-dûm was perpetually out of stock. Now, I know this is something that a lot of our listeners will suffer with, is trying to find the stock for playing the game in the order they want to play it in. And it drove me crazy. I mean, I did buy up other stuff and put it on the shelf, but I kind of stopped myself from playing on until I managed to get Khazad-dûm. And when I got it, I was over the moon to get a big box. But I was actually then completely taken by surprise about how small the big box was.
That's because you had the giant core set, which we mentioned before. Whereas for me, I think the deluxe box isn't that much smaller than the core set, which I've got. So yeah, it wasn't that surprising.
not that big a shock.
Right. Whereas your one, you could actually probably fit a dwarf into the box which the original game came in.
Oh, for sure.
It's massive.
So yeah, I was over the moon, but I was actually a little surprised when I first got Khazad-dûm that there weren't that many new player cards. I was kind of expecting when we got to a deluxe that we'd get a big influx of player cards again, a bit like a sort of miniature core set. But actually, you only get kind of the same number roughly as you do in an AP. I mean, of course, you get 3 quests, which is amazing, but not the influx of player cards that I was expecting. But you know, I'm not complaining. We get a whole new set and a couple of heroes and a load of other good stuff in there. So if you're ready, should we jump straight in?
Yeah, let's go. I should say as well, I felt the same too when I opened the deluxe. I thought there'd be more player cards. But in hindsight, having played a little bit since opening this deluxe and the subsequent APs, etc., I'm kind of glad that I think they got the number just right, actually. Because it still feels kind of manageable. I think if there was suddenly, you had 2/3 of the number of cards that you got in the core set, it could become really, there'd be loads of cards which you just never get around to using or wouldn't get to know. I mean, I think there's plenty enough to keep you going.
Oh, yeah.
in my opinion. So I think they made a good decision there.
Yeah, I think you're right. I mean, in hindsight, yeah, you would just be overwhelmed. And actually, you could go, well, I only get 2 new heroes. It's like, yeah, don't worry. You're going to get plenty more.
Yes, true.
There are a lot of cards coming. Just take your time. Okay, well then, if you're ready, let's jump in. And shall we start with those heroes? So we got a couple of heroes with this deluxe set, and they're both dwarfs. You'll notice a theme in Khazad-dûm. Do you want to pick one, Em?
Sure, I'm going to pick the spirit one for a change.
What a surprise!
And it's Dwalin. So he's a spirit hero, a dwarf. He has a starting threat cost of 9. He quests for 1, hits for 2, defends for 2, and has 4 hit points. And he has a response. After Dwalin attacks and destroys an orc enemy, lower your threat by 2.
Oh, this is right up your street.
Yeah, it's right up my street. And shockingly, I haven't actually used Dwalin a great deal. But I was just thinking about, and we'll go into this in the coming weeks, I'm just thinking about a particular quest in Khazad-dûm where this guy's probably going to be really useful, and I probably should have revisited him before I set off on that quest. So yeah, I haven't used Dwalin. I think I maybe used him in a quest or 2 when I first opened this deluxe box, maybe quite a few months ago, whenever it was. But I've not revisited him since then, so I think I'm going to do that before we record the next episode. So I think it's suddenly piqued my interest.
Well, do you know what? I think I've also never played him. But I mean, I'm not as obsessed by Spirit as you are. But I think, do you know why? I think it's because Spirit is not known for its fighting, you know? So the fact that his response is after he attacks and destroys an orc, lower your threat by 2. So it seems very conditional, you know? He has to be involved with the attack. I mean, of course, he hits for 2. That's not to be sniffed at. But you're going to have to pair him up with someone else who can probably do the real damage to take out these orcs. And the fact that it's only orc enemies that you get to lower your threat, I mean, we'll see this a few more times where there is a condition that comes into effect when an orc is destroyed or an orc is attacked. And what I found is when I put these guys in my deck, I never seem to draw orcs.
Well, again, that's going to depend on the quest, isn't it?
Yeah.
So it gets, immediately you think, obviously, Dwalin is going to be effective if you've got an orc-heavy quest, which you're doing. Just to your other point now, about Spirit not being known for fighting. Yeah, I think that's true. But I think when it comes to dwarves, it's a bit different, isn't it? I think it's all about how they kind of bounce off each other, isn't it? I think that's something that starts to emerge. So, you know, you're talking about he only quests for 1, and he's a spirit.
Yeah,
that's his worst thing is willpower, and he's a spirit hero. That's, you know, probably unheard of so far in the in the heroes we've seen. But then you think about people like Dane Ironfoot, who was one of the dwarf heroes we saw in the first cycle.
Yeah. Who
allows other dwarfs, as long as he's ready, to have 1 additional willpower, and suddenly he's sort of boosted up. So, you know, I think there's a lot doing the dwarves, and I think this is something we'll see as we go through this. You really start to see how the cards synergize off each other and how you sort of build up sort of combos. And I'm sure there'll be a whole bunch of combos which you've done which I'd never thought of, and maybe there's a couple I've done which you haven't come across. You know, I'm sure we'll see that kind of stuff crop up a fair bit as we go through these.
Well, I think actually you raise a very important point, and that very important point is Dane Ironfoot. Now, we spoke about Dane way back when we did the hero cards from the first cycle, and neither of us really played him during that first cycle replay, because Dane's ability is all focused on dwarfs, and there aren't that many dwarfs available to us in the first cycle. I mean, but got to remember that Dane came out right at the end of that first cycle, almost in preparation for this first deluxe box. So I think it might be worth actually quickly revisiting him, because he has a massive effect on anyone who's trying to put together their first dwarf deck. Dane is your cornerstone. So I don't know I know we're meant to be talking about the new cards, but I wonder if we should just quickly mention him again.
Yeah, well, I've got him right here. Shall I read
go
it out?
for it. Go for it.
Okay, so just to recap. So Dane Ironfoot, he's a dwarf. He's a leadership hero. He's got a starting cost of 11. He only quests for 1, but he hits for 2, and he's got a shield of 3 and 5 hit points. So straight away you see from there he's an effective attacker, amazing defender.
Yeah.
But it's really all about his ability. So while Dane Ironfoot is ready, dwarf characters gain +1 attack and +1 willpower.
So strong.
So as long as he's sitting there, So as long as the theme, I think we discussed this when we spoke about Dane. The theme there is really, he's the leader, telling people what to do. So he's ready, but he's inspiring everybody else to either quest or fight stronger than they are before. And it's all dwarf characters that affects. I think you made the point on the previous podcast. If you're playing multiplayer, that's any dwarf character, whether it be hero, ally, and including himself. Yeah. On the on the table. So he becomes, the more dwarfs you have, the more potent that ability is.
Yeah, he's insanely powerful.
And the more choices you have,
he's insanely powerful. It's good that, just to quickly recap him, because I think there are going to be a lot of cards in this deluxe box that we are going to go, well, that works well with Dane.
Yeah.
So it's good just to remind people that we have this hero from the first cycle that, highly likely that you haven't played him yet, but especially if you're playing progressively, because I think Dane came in that last AP. So chances are you went, oh, I've got a dwarf which affects other dwarfs. Yeah, I don't need him right now. But now you do. So going back to your point, yes, you're absolutely right. So suddenly Dwalin, who hits for 2 in spirit, would then be hitting for 3 if you had Dane on board and he was ready.
So if you've got orcs there and he can take out orc enemies with now hitting for 3, or any other ability, if he's got attachments which make him hit for more, etc., then he's potentially a great way of keeping your threat down.
Yeah.
If you are seeing a lot of orc enemies. So I think I'm going to definitely have a run out with Dwalin. This happens whenever we start going through the cards. Think, hold on a minute.
I was going to mention that.
I know how I can use this.
That card you've had in your binder for 2 years.
Yeah. Only a year.
Only a
year for me.
Only a year for you, and only about 5 years for me. Now, a quick sideline on the artwork here. I know I've done it already. I've got 2 things to say. Thing 1, there's some very phallic imagery going on, which is all I'm going to say.
See, this is how you and I are different. See, I was thinking, I wonder if he's a Christian dwarf. His cross. See, this happens to be a cross shape. But you and, there you go, listener. We'll leave it up to your own judgment as to how that reflects on each of us as individuals.
So we'll brush over that. but
as you wish.
But thing 2, he's got a touch of the Steve Zissou's about him. The Life Aquatic. I don't know if he's got
the red hat.
He's got himself a woolen red hat underneath his hood. And a beard.
God, he has. Yeah, you're right. Well, there you go. I'm never looking at Dwalin the same way. Played by Bill Murray. Actually, do you know another thing I noticed as well? Next time we have a quick glance at Gimli, in from the core set, a quick glance, he has a giraffe standing behind him.
Okay, I'll bank that one and I'll look at that next time.
Because I did a double take yesterday when I was like, what? I've never spotted that before. But then you realise. But when you look at it quickly... Anyway, that's all I'll say on that.
Okay, but I mean, it's a nice piece of artwork. Don't get me wrong, but it's Steve Zissou, and what is he up to?
Well, there's also a bit of text. Oh, so I found out just this week that flavor text isn't something which you invented.
No, I tried to tell you this.
Which I always thought it was. It was just sitting there I saw it on Rings DP. It actually says one of the fields you can search on is flavor text. I was like, either John has influenced the makers of Rings DP, or it's There it is. Anyway, the text, which I guess you'd describe as flavour text on this card, it's a quote from The Hobbit about Dwalin, I assume, and it says, "It was a dwarf with a blue beard tucked into a golden belt and very bright eyes under his dark green hood." There's a lot of colours going on there, but there's no mention of a red beanie.
A little bit of artistic license.
But however, does have a blue beard, and Life Aquatic, they all wore blue, didn't they? So, yeah. There could be a link soon. That's all I have to say on that.
Well, whilst you were mentioning the Rings DB there, I would just like to say congratulations. You have finally put your decks up on Rings DB for our listeners to search.
Yes, I have, and apologies for the delay. It was something which I kept forgetting to do. Yeah. So if anyone wants to use any of my foolishly cobbled together decks, they're up there with yours, John. On the what were the details of that? How do people find it? You did have
okay, you put me on the spot here, but you need to go to deck lists, and then there's a search option, and then when you're there, if you go to author name and search Late of the Rings,
right,
that will bring up all our decks.
That all one word?
No, all separate words.
Separate. Okay, cool.
I put this in the show notes as well. So if you're confused and you really want to see our decks, then that's how you find them.
Cool. Okay.
So well done you. Okay, that's one card done.
Thank you.
That's one card from the new set, and one from about 6 episodes ago.
Yeah.
We're motoring along.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's move.
Down to speed.
so let's move swiftly on to the other hero that you get in this box, and that is a lore hero, and it's another dwarf. It's another dwarf, and it is Biffa, and he is a unique hero, and he has a starting threat of 7. He quests for 2, which is more than the spirit hero. He hits for 1. He has 2 defense and 3 hit points. And he's a dwarf, and he has this action. Pay 1 resource from a hero's resource pool to add 1 resource to Biffa's resource pool. How much wood would a woodchuck chuck if a woodchuck could chuck wood?
Well done.
Do you know what? Do you know what? I don't think I've ever said that before.
Right. Congratulations to you. We keep congratulating each other today. That's really big life goals we're achieving on this podcast.
Okay, I'll just say that one more time. So, action. Pay 1 resource from a hero's resource pool to add 1 resource to Biffa's resource pool. Any player may trigger this ability. Limit once per round.
Give Biffa a resource.
Yeah.
From another hero. So gift 1 gift per round, if required.
Yeah, from any player. Yeah. Okay.
I've never used him.
No, me neither. But
I'm trying to. You know what? There are. You know what I will say though is, not specifically talking about Biffa here, but there have been many occasions I've played this game and wish that you got one hero or set of heroes in the same sphere who's got loads of resource, and it's very annoyingly there's one hero which hardly got any, and you think, I wish I could just shift some of these across. But I think there are 1 or 2 cards that can do that, which we've come across already. But that might not be a.
Yeah, but do you know what I'm thinking?
What do you think?
I'm thinking that Dane Ironfoot is a leadership hero. He helps out all dwarves. Leadership is never short of resources.
True. Yeah.
You play Biffa with Dane. You get Steward of Gondor on to Dane. He pays for all the leadership cards. And then once per round, you can just pass over a resource onto Biffa to help pay for your lore cards.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Or anyone who's got Steward of Gondor, can do that. You could, of course, just give Steward of Gondor to Biffa.
Yeah, but then why would you? Because you can basically you can feed him. You can feed him resources.
You can.
I mean,
yeah.
Actually, I mean, it doesn't seem that strong, but exactly what you just said.
It's a combo.
So many times that you need those extra resources, but it's not that strong. But he is quite a hardy dwarf, defensive 2 and 3 hit points. He can be a good defender for you, especially if you get like a burning brand or something on him.
A good quester with Dane.
Good quester. And what I was going to say was super low starting cost.
Yeah, exactly.
So you can start nice and low, because Dane was starting cost of 11, wasn't he?
Yes, 11.
Yeah, so that's pretty high. So let's say you are playing that sort of Dane Biffa and someone else combo. That's not bad at all. You can really feed Biffa with resources. You keep your starting cost down, and he can be a defender. Yeah, never played him. I love him.
Well, do you know what I love about him as well? Is great artwork again on this one.
Yep. And
you see how he's reading there, and he's got his finger pointed. It's almost like you can imagine him running his finger down, like he's looking down the list. Can you see that on the page?
I can.
Now, there's a great quote at the bottom here, and Biffa shows his true dwarven wisdom. And this is also a quote from Hobbit. It says, "And winter comes after autumn." Biffa, the Hobbit.
That's a man of the world, isn't it?
So I'm imagining him looking at that list and saying, spring, summer, autumn, winter. I see. These books are fantastic.
So wise. So
wise. It's not he's focused. He's really. It's fantastic artwork. It must be.
It is.
Oh, look who it is!
It really is absolutely beautiful.
It is.
Who is it?
And the artist is, of course, Madame Villeneuve.
Oh,
she's done it again.
Oh no, but fantastic. Oh, that's great. Well, that fills me with joy.
There you go.
Okay, so those are the 2 heroes, and we haven't played with either of them. Okay, but that's good, because that's what this podcast does. It means that when we start to go through the quests, I think we will then look at these cards and go, okay, yeah, perhaps we should put these in our decks. And I'm certainly keen to play Biffa, because I like lore and I like resources.
Yes, you do.
So those are the heroes, and that's one from Spirit and one from Lore. Now, should we just then jump to the other Spirit cards and the other Lore cards? So we'll basically do those spheres first, and then we can jump to Leadership and Tactics, which of course don't come with a hero. So we can sort of group them that way. Is that good with you?
Yeah, sure, works for me.
All right, well, let's carry on with Spirit then, as that was the first one we did. So we have a couple of other Spirit cards. Gentleman's pick.
Okay. I'm going to just be really selfish and just pick my favourite one of these 2.
Well, no, yeah. This is your prerogative.
And I'm going to pick an event. And the event is called Untroubled by Darkness.
Okay.
Which I kind of like the sound of that already. And it's an event which costs 2. And the action is each dwarf character gets +1 willpower until the end of the phase. +2 instead if the active location is an underground or dark location.
Okay.
Now, I think we haven't seen locations with the keyword underground or dark until we get to Khazad-dûm. But as anyone who knows anything about Khazad-dûm will know that there are dark and underground places.
Yeah, you don't really have to hit up too many of the appendices to find that out.
No.
No, that's true. Yeah, so if you are building a dwarf-focused deck to go through the mines, you'll find some underground and dark locations to make this card really. But actually, even without that effect, +1 until the end of the phase is not to be sniffed at.
So again, think of day 9 for you've got +1 willpower for every dwarf character you've got. So if you're questing with 5 or 6 characters, if you're playing 2-player, maybe even more, you play one of these, you're putting an extra 1 on every single one that's questing, or an extra 2 if it's one of those locations. So you could be questing for a huge amount, actually. This could really bump you up using this card. So, yeah, I've used this one a fair bit when I've been going through the cycle, but of course we'll come to that. So, yeah, a big favourite of mine. you know I love cards that help you quest. So
I do indeed. But do you know what I'm going to say? It's like we're really falling into our own traps here. You love
you're going to
cards
say it's
that-
too expensive.
I'm going to say it's too expensive.
No.
I think it's perfectly priced if you get that +2. But and there are plenty of quests where nearly every location is either underground or dark, so you definitely do get your use out of this. But I think to have it just in a standard dwarf deck, if you happen to be taking them through anywhere which isn't underground or dark, I think it's too expensive.
You see, I don't think so. I think if you've got, let's say, 6 dwarf characters who you want to quest, or 4, well, let's say you've got 4, you're going to pay 2 to get an extra 4 on your progress. I think that's a fair deal. And it's what's the opposite of the law of diminishing returns? The law of
Additive
returns.
additive takeaways.
Well, you just need the opposite of diminishing. Expanding
takeaways.
The law of expanding returns.
But returns. It can't be. You said what's the opposite of diminishing returns?
Expanding returns is the opposite of diminishing returns.
No, expanding takeaways. It's coming. That's
the same as diminishing returns. You've double negatived it.
Okay.
This is a discussion for our sister grammar podcast.
I suppose if you return something, you could also be taking it away. Can you? Okay, so what's the opposite?
It
of something
depends where you're returning it to.
Exactly.
But returns is return on your investment.
I know
That's
what
the
it,
law of diminishing returns.
I know what it actually is. I was just trying to do the actual opposite.
So it's what's the opposite of a law? The chaos.
Yes.
Of expanding takeaways.
Yes. It's the chaos of expanding takeaways.
Just imagine somebody trying to help deliver all of these takeaways to the houses, but there's just so many of them. It's going to be really chaotic. This poor guy's trying to load up his car with all of it. What number was that for?
I have an important question.
Uh-oh.
What was your point?
So my point was that for more dwarves you have questing.
Yeah.
In effect, the more value this card is, even if you're just questing for an additional 1.
Oh, yeah, of course.
You know, so if you've got 7 dwarves questing, so it's an extra 7 for just the cost of 2.
Do you know what? I'm sure there's an actual saying for that anyway, rather than trying to think of the opposite.
Yeah, I'm sure. Yeah, we're just too ignorant to know what it is. But I'm a fan, even though we're troubled by language, but untroubled by darkness. I think that's a cracking card. That's a good one for me.
Okay, well, I will endeavour to play it more and see if I agree with you or not. But
you're not.
I'm not sold yet.
Yeah.
I'm also not sold by the artwork, not the quality of it. It's outstanding. But what I'm not sold by is he looks troubled. This is a troubled-looking dwarf. That is not someone confident in the darkness. Or is he?
Yeah. He does. Yeah. If I was going to look up untroubled in the dictionary and that was the picture, I think you're right. I wouldn't quite.
Classic picture dictionary.
Yeah. It's the best kind of dictionary there is.
A Pictionary.
He really reminds me of somebody.
Well, it reminds me of someone holding a double bass, but he's holding an axe. But I always think he's like in a dark jazz club.
It looks like do you know what he looks like he's doing? Mm-hmm. He's got like a little secret walkie-talkie on the front of his, like an undercover cop, and he's just talking into that.
He's infiltrated the dwarfs.
Yeah.
He's a dwarf infiltrator.
I want to remember who he reminds me of. It will come to me. It will come to me, listener. Give us an extra couple of hours on this podcast, and we'll get there.
Okay, so, yeah. Untroubled by darkness, not convinced, too expensive. Now, I'm going to talk about a card which I love for exactly the same cost. Work that one out, listener. So this is a dwarf ally in the spirit sphere, cost of 2. And it's a Sigil Miner. And cost 2. And has willpower for 1, hits for 1, defense of 1, 1 hit point. Pretty well rounded.
Sigil.
What did I say?
Not Zigil.
Sigil. Oof.
They're not holding a sigil.
Sigil Miner.
I don't know. It's one of those things that, you've only ever read the word, you never heard it be said. In my head, it's always Zigil.
Well, yeah, but
let's go with sigil. Go with sigil. That's fine.
Well,
it suits you.
Not necessarily. It suits you. But the thing is, I know we talked about before, there are a lot of soft letters in Tolkien's work which are pronounced hard, like the soft C, which would normally be a soft C in English, would be a hard C in Elven. So Calibor, Calabrian, you would normally see those as soft Cs, but in Tolkien's work they're hard Cs. So I wonder if that's the same for the G. Sigil Miner. Should we go with it? Sigil Miner.
My default position on a G would be a hard G, but that's just me. I don't know if I'm right or not. It's just how I read it. I'm probably wrong. Don't listen to me. That was another thing I remember from the Lord of the Rings extras on the films. They actually hired, they hired this guy who was an expert in the languages of Middle-earth, like down to pronunciations and all of this kind of stuff.
Do you happen to have his number?
yeah, drop him a quick line. Well, he was based in the UK, actually, if I recall. So, there will be people who will know this. I'm sure there are language rules about such things.
Oh, almost certainly. I will make an effort to look it up. But right now, we have to talk about the card. So we have to pick one. I'm going with...
whatever you like the most. Just go with that.
I don't know anymore. Okay, Sigil Miner. Oh, no, but now it feels wrong. Sigil Miner. Okay, it's a dwarf ally. It's the Sigil Miner. It's a miner. He costs 2. He quests for 1, he hits for 1, defense for 1, it's 1 hit point. Very well rounded. He has an action. It says exhaust Sigil Miner and name a number to discard the top 2 cards of your deck. If at least one of those cards has a cost equal to the named number, choose a hero you control. For each card that matches the named number, add 1 resource to that hero's resource pool. Okay, that's quite a lot to take in, but essentially, if you exhaust this guy, you can basically say 2 or 3 or 1, and basically you're kind of predicting the costs of cards coming off your deck, and you're going to look at the next 2, and if one of them equals that cost, you get a resource per that card. And if they both have that cost, you get 2 resources. Now, I love the theme of this. It's great. I mean, he mines through your deck and finds you precious things. I think that's glorious. I think you probably shouldn't be using this guy just randomly, just the sort of guessing a number. There are a few cards we have seen already which allow you to look at the top of your deck. I mean, there's Gildor. Gildor allows you to look at the top 3, swap a card, and then put them back on your deck in any order. If you can do that, and you happen to see 2 cards of the same cost, go for it. That's 2 extra resources. Of course, you lose the cards, but you've got plenty others. So that's a good one. Keen-eyed Took.
Suddenly you thought of a use for Keen-eyed Took. I can't remember what he does. He looks at
you look at the card, and I can make you discard it. That's all I remember. But basically, you get to look at a card. So you could look at the card, not discard it, and then play Sigil Miner, and you could get a resource.
Okay.
I mean, I like him because he's cheap. I know he's the same cost as Untroubled by Darkness, but for an ally, he's cheap and he does a bit of everything. Again, If you boost him with Dane, if you don't need to do his effect, that's great. He's questing for 2, he's hitting for 2.
Yeah, he's a decent ally. I mean, if he was just 1/1/1/1 on his stats and with a cost of 2 with no extra ability, that's still not a bad ally. Just to chuck out there, just to help you along. But
I think his downfall as just an ally is actually that 1 hit point.
Yeah, he could, because you'd be tempted to quest him, wouldn't you? That would probably leave him as a chump blocker, wouldn't it?
Yeah. And as chump blockers go, he's actually a bit expensive because.
But if you got Dane, he's questing for 2, and that's really useful.
Yeah, oh yeah.
But then one little treachery, and that could be the end of. You'll be holding a sigil for sigil.
Okay, I will look up how to pronounce that for the next card. But no, I like him a lot. But like I said, I don't think you should go into it just guessing cards, because you have to discard those top 2, even if you get it wrong. They don't go back to your deck, so you could end up just burning through your deck if you're not careful.
So for somebody who has championed through the previous episodes, drawing cards.
Yeah.
At all costs, seemingly. Now what you're saying is, burn the cards, show me the money. So one little glisten of a... You're basically a dwarf now. You're sort of like, the sigil miner had some precious stone which you mined, and you sort of looked at it and your mouth started to just slowly hang open as you stared longingly at the at the ruby.
I do love cards, but I also love resources. You may have noticed I got quite enamored by Biffa all of a sudden.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You're right though. I think if you can look at the top of the decks, if you can use Gildor, then I think then Sigil Miner really comes into its own, because you can control it rather than just randomly guess it and potentially just lose a couple of cards which you might need.
Well, actually, Gildor's golden Gildor, I call him, because if just a reminder, Gildor allows you to look at the top 3, swap one of those cards out, and then put the 3 that you now have in your hand back onto the deck in any order. So you can really go, well, I've got this dead card in my hand. Maybe you've got a unique card which you've already played out, so you don't need another one, or anything like that. Something you just don't need that time. You could play Gildor, get the 3, swap it for something you actually need, put the dead card back on top, preferably with another card which costs the same, play Sigil Miner, and then get the 2 resources and get that dead card out of your hand. That's a great move that I don't do, but I will from now on. Yeah, so those are the spirit cards which you get in the set. So we'll jump now, I think, to the lore ones. So alongside Biffa, we get a couple more lore cards. Do you want to pick one?
Well, why don't you pick the first, because you know which one I'm going to pick. If it was left up to me.
Well,
so I'll do the gentlemanly thing and give you the choice.
Well, no, because I'm just reading through now, and actually, again, a card that I never use, but I'm just suddenly thinking of like a good few uses of him. So that's an ally called the Arable Record Keeper. Has this come as a surprise to you?
No. I was always going to pick the other one, and I thought you would pick the Arable Record Keeper, because I think it requires a bit more subtlety to use them well, and you're probably a bit more subtle than I am.
No, well, the Arable Record Keeper is another ally, and he's a dwarf. Cost of 1 willpower, no attack, no defense, and again, only 1 hit point. So pretty weak, but pretty cheap. But Arable Record Keeper says this: Arable Record Keeper cannot attack or defend. Well, no, evidently. Stats of 0-0.
He's like the scorer in cricket. He's not taking part.
I don't think we should go there. I don't think so.
Okay, all right. That's one for her. Yeah, okay. Apologies, all listeners outside the Commonwealth.
And he has an action. exhaust Erebor Record Keeper, and pay 1 lore resource to choose and ready a dwarf character.
Mm-hmm.
Now,
Okay, I think I know where you're going.
I very rarely have played this guy, and when I have, it's been for like an extra point of questing with Dane being ready, because he's very cheap. He's a cheap dwarf, and as you've said a few times, if you can get just lots of dwarfs on your table with Dane as your leadership hero, suddenly, things are coming alive. You're getting a lot of questing power, especially if you used your Untroubled by Darkness, which gave each dwarf character +1 willpower until the end of the phase, or 2 if it was Underground and Dark. So, yeah, cheap dwarfs, great. Just load up your table with them. But let's look at that ability for a second. I've not played this guy because I haven't liked the fact that you have to exhaust him and pay again. Yeah, you're right. I have just turned into a complete dwarf. Because it's like, well, I've already paid for him. Why should I pay again for his effect? But actually, let's think this through. Dane, in order to affect all the other dwarfs, has to be ready.
Yep.
And as you said, he's a brilliant defender. But when he's ready, he adds +1 attack to all the other dwarfs. But of course, if you've already defended with him, he's exhausted. So that boost goes. But how about this? What if you were playing Dane and Biffa?
Yeah. I think we had the same thought.
And you've had to exhaust Dane to defend. And then you just keep Erebor Record Keeper ready because he can't attack or defend.
Not doing anything else, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, he could have quested, but actually what you want to do is just keep one of them on your table ready. He's cheap. Let's say you can move a resource onto Biffa if he hasn't got any. You spend that 1 lore resource and exhaust Erebor Record Keeper, and then ready Dane. When you get to your attack of the combat phase, Dane is ready again. He boosts everyone's attack power, and the Erebor Record Keeper's earned his keep, quite literally.
Exactly. Yeah, absolutely. And if you've got, and it only costs 1 to get him out there.
Yeah.
And you can have 3 of these out potentially. So I think there are many times in a quest where you would willingly pay a resource to ready somebody.
Yeah.
I think that's a simple way to look at it. I mean, loads of times you'd say, if only I could ready this guy so I can attack or defend with them, I'd gladly pay a resource. So I think that ability, for just the cost, it only costs 1 to get him out there. Yeah. So I think paying that extra resource isn't too big a cost, in my opinion. I think that actually works really nicely. And yeah, I've completely come around just from this conversation to the Erebor Record Keeper.
Yeah, but I think it's just that 1 cost to get him out. It's just 1 cost. Just pay 1, get him on the table. And,
exactly.
and
why wouldn't you anyway,
Yeah, exactly. And don't get fooled into using him to quest. I mean, maybe if you get 3 of them out, use 2 of them to quest and keep 1 ready so that you can always do that exhaust and pay 1 to ready a hero.
Yeah. Yeah.
Actually, it doesn't even say a hero. It's a dwarf character.
Any character, yeah.
Most likely you'll be readying a hero, I'd imagine.
Well, to be discussed when we look at the quests, I think. I can think of a couple where you might want to ready somebody else.
Yeah.
But let's come to that.
No, but I like him.
Yeah, same here. I'm sold. You've sold me. Much more so than our friend the miner. Who's still pretty good. Yeah, I think all the cards we looked at so far are good. I think you can see the synergies already.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, like you said right at the beginning, I mean, it doesn't take long to see how suddenly we're getting really into a dwarf focused scenario here, where the cards really start to work off each other. Much more so than we've seen so far. Yeah, we saw it a bit with Eagles, we saw it a bit with Rohan, but now suddenly every card from every sphere. Well, we've only looked at 2 so far, but it's bouncing off each other. Well, I say we've only looked at 2. Dane is in leadership, and Dane is constantly helping dwarfs from whatever sphere. So, yeah. Great. So you thought that I thought that you thought you definitely wanted to do the other one.
Yes, which was correct.
So you could have gone first anyway.
I could have gone first. Yeah. I'm just doing a gentlemanly thing.
Okay, very kind.
Okay, so the other law card is an event, and it costs 1, and it's called Ancestral Knowledge. It says action: exhaust a dwarf character to place 2 progress tokens on the active location. 4 progress tokens instead if it's an underground or a mountain location. Okay, so just for a cost of 1 and exhausting a character, that could be any character, you can suddenly put, if it's an underground or mountain location, you can put 4 progress on the active location.
Yeah.
Now, how I've played this one is if you put 4 on, and let's say you only required 2 to get through that active location, the extra 2 still go on the quest card. That's how I've been doing it when on the odd occasion I've used this card. Ooh. I was expecting it. Yeah, that's correct.
I don't think it is.
You don't think so?
Exhaust the dwarf character to place 2 progress tokens on the active location.
But anything you don't put on the active location spills over onto the...
Yeah, no. Well, no, any progress. When you
4 progress tokens.
No, but do you remember way back when we talked about Legolas? And it says on Legolas that when he participates in an attack which destroys an enemy, you place 2 progress on the active quest.
On the current
quest. And the whole point of that discussion was that if you have a active location, the progress always goes on the location first before it goes onto the quest. But the difference there is that is saying put the tokens on the quest. This is specifically saying put the tokens on the active location. Mm-hmm. It's not saying you quest. It's saying put the tokens on the location.
Okay, so in a similar way, for example, if you had... well, no, I think it's for active location. You're putting progress on that location. Doesn't the rule state that any progress which goes on the active location over and above what's required to get through it goes onto the quest?
Yeah, that would be any progress, any like questing progress. But this is just saying place 2 progress tokens on the active location. So
but when we do put progress on the active location, because I think we discussed this a couple of weeks ago, there's that thing about you're putting the tokens on the card. That's a separate step. So if you're questing normally, you've calculated the difference. Yeah. Okay, and then the next step is you physically put the progress tokens on the card. Right, and that's what we're doing here. We're physically putting progress tokens on the card. Yeah. So so at that point, isn't the rule that any progress tokens you put on the active location...
No, see, I thought you just talked yourself out of it then, because this is, like you say, it's just saying put progress tokens on that card. It's not saying you're questing. It's not saying you're doing anything, because in your world... What would happen then if you played this event and you didn't have a location?
And you don't put it anywhere.
Yeah. So what's
there's no active location? You've wasted you've exhausted a character for no reason and wasted a resource.
Okay, then. So let's say in that scenario, you have an active location which requires 2 progress to get through it.
Yep.
You have 4 progress in your hand, tokens.
Yep.
You put the first 2 onto that location. At that point, it is immediately explored and leaves. And it leaves to the discard pile.
Yeah.
You now have 2 progress tokens. There is now no longer an active location. So therefore you can no longer put those extra progress tokens onto the active location.
Okay, so you're saying that it only works if it says put it on the quest, and then that gets overridden if there happens to be an active location. Yeah. But not the other way around.
When you are questing, and therefore when you are adding tokens to progress your quest, the active location always acts as a buffer. Yeah. When you have a card which directly affects a location, it is directly affecting a location. I mean, I'm trying to think of some other examples off the top of my head.
I think I understand the difference between those two scenarios, but it's been a good couple of episodes since I've done some inadvertent cheating. So, for old time's sake. And hence I asked the question because I have played this. I haven't played this card loads, and haven't had that situation loads where you happen to put more progress than is required. And if it did happen, you'd be talking 1, maximum 2, probably in all likelihood. But it's good to know what the rule is. Okay, for me, this is still a really useful card.
Yeah, cost of 1, clear out location, no problem.
Exactly, exactly, and. Then if you think, in conjunction with something like Untroubled by Darkness or, any other card which makes you sort of quest more, you can suddenly clear through a lot of... At the end of the day, the dwarves on their own aren't particularly strong quest-wise. 1s and 2s generally, sometimes 0s. So I think that card can be really useful in certain quests.
Well, but how about this then? So let's say you have the Erebor Record Keeper on the table and you're keeping him ready because you intend to do that combo we mentioned a minute ago, that we're going to defend with Dane and then we're going to ready him with the Erebor Record Keeper. But then no enemies come out, but a nasty location does. So you've still got Erebor Record Keeper ready and now no enemies to deal with. Then you can just, if you travel to that nasty location after you've done your questing, then you exhaust Erebor Record Keeper, you can put the progress tokens on that location and you're ready for the next round without anything in your way.
Exactly, yeah.
No, I like it. I like it
really
a lot.
Really good card.
Yeah, it's great.
I quite dig the artwork on this one as well.
Yeah. No, it's great.
It's quite, even though you can't see his face, but you just get a sense of pride from this guy, don't you think?
I thought that was his face.
It's the beard.
It's the beard.
Very pretty. Very pretty dwarf.
Okay, so those are the lore cards. So now we have 3 leadership cards and 3 tactics cards. So no heroes for leadership and tactics. And I think this was one of the things which surprised me when I got the deluxe. I was thinking, well, we'll probably get like 4 new heroes. We'll probably get 1 from each sphere and then a few player cards. And that's what I was surprised about. It's like, only 2 heroes. But as previously mentioned, it turns out it's really not a problem. But it does mean that they sort of balance what you get with the other spheres by giving you some extra player cards. So shall we go? Well, we talked about Dane a lot, and he's in leadership. So should we complete the leadership cards here?
Yeah.
Okay, now I have no idea which ones you like. I know there's one you definitely like. So please just go ahead.
Yeah, I like all 3 of these.
Oh, wow. Okay, go for it.
Okay, I'll just go from the top then. So the first one is Navi's Belt, which is a unique attachment. And I've gone for this because it's my favourite type. It's an item. I do love an item.
You do.
That's a cost of 2. Very nice belt. Just sits below the pot belly line.
Yeah, below the tummy. That's
yeah.
where as all dads know, that's where you want to be wearing your belts.
Yeah. After a bit of meat off the bone, you've got to adjust old Navi's belt a bit. Oh.
Excuse me.
And then he hits his chest, does a little belch.
Yeah. Okay.
So Navi's belt. So it's a leadership attachment item, cost of 2, attached to a dwarf hero. Action: exhaust Navi's belt to give attached hero a leadership, lore, tactics, or spirit icon until the end of the phase. So, really, really, really useful. It's like having multiple songs in one attachment. And for the cost of 2, you can suddenly play all of these different sphere cards. So you can stock up your deck with cards from different spheres. Yeah. And it just opens up different abilities you can bring with you on the deck. Plus, you're talking about earlier about Biffa's ability, being able to give a resource to Biffa. You can do that once around. With this, you could potentially do that more. There's a whole bunch of uses of this. And I found this with some of the decks I've constructed with the cards you get in Khazad-dûm and some of the previous Dwarf ones, this is a real go-to. It's almost like a bit of a must-have kind of card in some scenarios. So you can have, maybe heroes from just a couple of spheres, but you can have cards from all four. So yeah, this is a big favourite of mine.
Yeah.
Narvi's Belt.
Now, I know you like this a lot more than I do. I'm not dead against it, but I have a few issues with it. But I'm just going to jump back. You said a second ago with Biffa, if he had this, you could give resource once per round, and you said you could potentially do it more.
No. So what I meant was, obviously, with Biffa, let's say if a leadership hero had Narvi's Belt.
Yeah.
And maybe had Steward of Gondor or something like that, and they're getting loads of resources. Biffa, you can give one resource around through his ability, on top of the one he already gets. But obviously, if you've got some lore cards you want to play,
like that,
yeah. So you can play. So let's say if this was on Dane, for example, he's the leadership hero, so you can always play leadership and neutral cards. But then in any particular phase, well, only once a round, of course, because you have to exhaust Narvi's Belt to use it. You've got a whole bunch of resource, and you've got a whole bunch of, error board record keepers and other and other such lore cards in your hand. You can play them out, for example. So yeah, I found this a really powerful tool.
Yeah,
this.
Yeah, and of course the reason it says exhaust and then until the end of the phase is there are a few encounter cards and a few player cards that affect specific spheres, not necessarily when you're just spending resources. So the fact that it gives those sphere icons to that character, it wouldn't go. So most likely you're going to exhaust this during the resource phase so that you can spend those resources on the cards that you want from outer sphere. But then after that phase, that character is no longer marked with that icon. Now, this is where it differs from the songs.
Yeah, true.
Now, once a song goes on it, that character essentially has those two resource icons and therefore are treated as such, as like a leadership and a lore hero, for instance. And I like Narvi's Belt for all the reasons you say. I dislike Narvi's Belt for a couple of reasons. One, I think it's slightly too expensive.
Oh my goodness.
Okay, no, but I do.
Well, let's talk about that.
Because it costs twice as much, 100% more than a song.
But does 4 times as much.
Yeah, but that only really comes into play. I think there are very niche times where you really start to pepper all the different spheres into a single deck. And most of the time, I think that a song is enough because the sort of decks you're running, you'll be able to just get the song out for a cost of 1, and then permanently have that resource icon. And I understand what you're saying, that you can pepper your decks with other cards. Like, let's say you're not playing any spirit and you want to have a bit of cancellation in your hand. Oh, actually, that's a good point. So we talked about that you would probably exhaust Narvi's Belt during the resource phase to get your allies and attachments out. You may want to do it during combat to
feint.
Yes, to play
something
feint,
like that.
To bring out a test of will or anything which might do any cancellations or anything like that. So indeed, that is.
There is another one as well. Another reason at this stage of where we are in the quests as well, which is, we have a bunch of dwarf themed cards at this point, but they are spread over all 4 spheres and neutral.
Yeah.
What this allows you to do is at this stage, if you had Narvi's Belt on a hero, you could use all of the cards that we're talking about today, for instance, in one deck. In fact, I'm not sure. Yeah, there isn't actually a leadership ally dwarf in this particular deluxe.
No.
But we do have dwarf allies already in the core set and the previous cycle.
Yeah. Oh, there's Brock.
There's Brock. I've been using Brock. You'd be shocked to hear, John. I will definitely save that for another time. Don't be disappointed in me.
I'm not disappointed.
You got who? Then you got the. I forget the name, but who's the ally? He's another expensive one. Costs 4, but it will do damage of 1. It will damages any orc that when he gets played for 1.
Longbeard Orc Slayer.
That's it. Yeah. So, like we say, all of these kind of allies sort of bounce off each other, to get lots of dwarfs out. And in my mind, I like having Navi's Belt because it's just one card that allows you to do all of those. Yes, it does cost twice as much as a song, but if you wanted to do all 4, you would need a couple of songs probably anyway. And then it's only one card as well, so you don't have to wait as long, potentially, by statistics anyway, to get it. So yeah, I understand what you're saying for sure.
My other issue is its uniqueness. I mean,
that's Navi's belt. How many belts does a dwarf need?
It shouldn't really matter because, of course, you can exhaust it to play any sphere you want. But if you had a couple of songs out, which were allowing you to play between spheres, and they're always active, you can kind of sort of hedge your bets a bit about who's got the song and who's got the resources. You don't have to have it all focused on one hero with one belt. I mean, saying that, I played Navi's Belt a lot, but there's just something about it which bothers me slightly, and I can't really put my finger on it.
It's the cost.
I think also it can only go on a dwarf hero. It could be just the cost, but there seems to be lots of little restrictions. Only a dwarf hero, which is fine right now. Right now it's great because we're doing dwarf stuff. But
this is completely dwarf-specific card. Well, obviously it is. It's
obviously,
but what I mean is its use is really catered towards the dwarves. In that, I think from what we've seen so far, like for example, the Rohan deck was pretty much mainly spirit, right? And the Eagle one was pretty much maybe even all tactics, but almost
tactics,
all tactics. Yeah. Whereas the dwarves are really spread across all of the different spheres. So this is just for me, just a way to collectively bring together all of the dwarves, and you've got to have one kind of strong leader guy who's going to wear that belt and tell everyone what to do. So his guy is going to have all the resource as well. So how I've generally done decks using this is having somebody who's basically mission critical.
Yeah.
So they're going to be the one. Dane. Yeah, probably going to be Dane. So the one who looks after the money, Daddy Dane.
Yeah.
Who's got Navi's belt? Daddy Dane.
Yeah.
Who's the one not committing to anything? Daddy Dane, because he's telling everyone what to do. So so that kind of thing. So, but if he goes down, you're in big bad trouble.
Well, that's interesting. So when you play Navi's Belt, do you just put one in your deck, or do you put three?
I put three.
Yeah.
Just because you're going to need to get Navi's Belt before you can play X amount of cards, which are in the spheres you don't have heroes for. So it's really critical to get Navi's Belt out quickly. And generally what it restricts you to, actually, is when you get your first 6 cards in your deck, if you don't have Navi's Belt, you'll pretty much every time mulligan it and just hope you get it in the second one. And not 9 times out of 10, that's not right at all, but generally speaking, if you don't see it in the first flop or the second flop, you'll see it soon off the deck. You'd be unlucky not to see it at some point pretty soon in the game, I think.
Yeah. But then also that also bothers me. So then you're filling up 3 slots in your deck with one unique item. I don't know. I will.
But that's
the
same for the songs as well, right? That's the same for the songs. And in fact, if you're playing 2 songs, then it's double, actually.
Yeah, but the songs I can play.
Got 4 chump cards.
I only play one song, and I tend to play the Rivendell Minstrel and then go digging for it.
Yeah.
So, okay, look, I'm going to go back, and I'm going to... Obviously, when I play these dwarf decks, Navi's Belt's going in. It's a no-brainer. But I know somewhere along the line, I fell out of love with this belt.
Yeah. Navi's Belt, you had a bad experience with Navi's Belt, which you can't quite remember what it is.
I've blocked
but
it
it's
out.
stuck. Yeah, it's stuck in it. And I haven't had that yet. Maybe
I've just gone through everything. I've just looked at it, starting top left. All right, cost 2. All right, next thing across. It's unique. It's
an item.
And then I've gone down. Yeah, item. Item, rubbish. Attached to a dwarf, just dwarfs. I've got to exhaust it.
You've prejudged it.
Only till the end of the phase.
Yeah.
I've basically covered everything, hoping that one of them will stick.
There's nothing left apart from it kind of looks pretty.
Okay, I could be wrong.
So we're unanimous on Navi's belt. Okay. There's 2 other leadership cards. Do you want to pick the next one?
Yeah, sure. Well, they're both events. So like you say, there's no leadership allies at all in this deluxe box. I'm just going to pick the next one, which is Durin's Song. A nice cost of 1. And it's a song.
You love your songs.
I love songs. And it has an action. And it says, choose a dwarf hero. That hero gets +2 willpower, +2 attack, and +2 defense until the end of the round.
That is a great card. I love this card.
For a cost of 1?
And are you instantly also thinking of an Erebor record keeper here?
Well, no, I wasn't, but I am now. So I. Oh no, but that is seriously. It's just. But Erebor record keeper. Hang on, wait.
Well, just from the point of view that if you want to quest and attack, or attack and defend with a particular hero, and really utilize the +2.
Yeah.
On 2 different fronts, then you
yeah.
can use the record keeper to do that.
Yeah, no, of course. No, I was just thinking that the Durin Song only affects heroes, but yes, of course. Yeah, if we can find a way to ready a hero, because this affects a dwarf hero till the end of the round. So, like you say, I'm fully with you now. Yeah, you quest with them. They're exhausted, of course. You use the Erebor record keeper. You get them ready. Then you can defend with them, attack with them. And they've got that boost. Oh my God, it's so good.
It's a long song. It's not a 2.5 minute pop tune. It lasts a whole round. It's a prog rock classic from Durin. Durin doesn't mess around.
This is Tolkien, of course. This is the classic. Oh, I've started reading the song. Well, I've read a page of it. I'll just turn it. Oh my God, it's 2 more pages. How many pages does this go on? Okay, I'm moving on.
Okay, so I know people who stopped reading Lord of the Rings because they couldn't handle the songs and stroke or the bit where it says thingy son of what's his face, son of blah blah blah, son of blah blah, and it goes on for pages and pages. Literally, sometimes it does. And I always say to him, best thing to do, just skip it.
Yeah, if you don't like that
now,
bit.
that may be sacrilege to people, but when I read Lord of the Rings, I basically tried to get the gist of the song and then I skipped it. And those when it went through the list of son of, I thought, it doesn't matter. If I'm interested in this at some point, it's there. I'll come back and look at it. Apologies if that offends everybody. I know there'll be some I know some people will think in a very completist manner will have to read every word of the book. I get that. Absolutely get it. But for me, I'd go insane, I think, if I tried to read all that. Because the first time I came across it, I thought, oh my God, you have to remember all of these characters? I mean, I can't remember like 50 people in the list. I can't even remember the name of the characters.
Or you're or you're listening to a song which is about characters from the first age, and you go, well, is this going to come up again?
Yeah.
do I need to know about this? I'm sure it's very beautiful. Yeah, the songs I agree with. I mean, I did read all the stuff about the son of this and son of that. I don't know if it was beneficial. I mean, some of it sunk in. I mean,
yeah, I didn't go there.
Not much. Not
much.
But no, okay, Durin's Song, we like this to go on for a whole round. This is a song we want to listen to. This is fantastic.
Yeah,
I mean, it's a utility, and it seems strange to be gushing about a utility like this, but it really is really powerful.
I don't think we should use the word utility. I was thinking of because it just made me think of the waterworks, the electric company.
No, I thought you were going to say I actually thought you were going to say I don't think we should use the word gushing.
A gushing utility. That's a flooding toilet.
That is so wrong. No, but it's seriously a useful card. And quick note on the artwork: it's not light through trees. It's light into Khazad-dûm. It's a bit like the shaft of light that's going into Balin's tomb, isn't it? But of course, this is onto a throne.
I wonder if it's inspired by one of the pyramids of Giza, where you have, or pyramids generally. I think that was the thing they did for a while, where at a certain point the sun would shine directly into the chamber and light it up.
Well, yeah,
maybe,
but I mean,
maybe not.
That scene where they have the cave troll in the films, which they have the light shining through onto Balin's tomb. It is Balin's tomb, isn't it?
Yeah.
That is the moment where I think it was seen in one of the first trailers for the Fellowship of the Ring, and it was at that point when I knew 100% that everything was going to be all right, because it was that set design and that chamber looked exactly as it was described by Tolkien. I mean, of course, Tolkien described everything within an inch of its life, and they absolutely nailed it there. And this is perhaps where we get our love of light passing through things.
I'm pretty sure I already had that, but but yeah, amazing. You know what? I didn't even see an advert for Lord of the Rings at all. I didn't see a single frame from it or anything, advert, anything like that, until it was released for home video. And then I didn't see it in the cinema, the first film. And yeah, I was just like, I'd read the book a few years before, when I was a teenager, I guess, whatever it was, I don't know. And I was like, this film ain't be any good. I don't bother. And I was at a particular age where I was completely out of, I wasn't looking at newspapers. It was pre-internet, really, mainstream-wise. Well, certainly was for me, being a bit of a Luddite. I was not an early adopter. Could barely work it now. So I avoided the whole thing. And I thought, okay, fine. My dad really wanted to watch it, I remember. So, okay, so we watched it together. I thought, this is pretty good. It's pretty good.
But were you saying that, Andrew? But were you like, oh God, I didn't think this was going to be any good. Oh, this is what everyone's been talking about.
Yeah. Well, I didn't even know people had been talking about it. I just avoided the whole thing.
Well, do you know what? Because, I mean, I've always been such a Lord of the Rings fan, and me and my friends were so excited for it. We went to a full midnight showing for the Fellowship, and it just blew me away. But I was so wrapped up in it, I just presumed that the whole world was. But actually, I don't know if they were. I don't know if it was until maybe the second film or the home video release, like you say. So maybe not. Maybe it wasn't such an instant world-changing film as I remember.
I think it was an extremely popular story. I think we forget in like the generations before us, it was huge,
Yeah.
But at that point, do not use me as a barometer for that, because I remember for the millennium, I went to a house party and stayed there overnight. And the next day, just chilling out, I was looking through the person there's DVD collection. And I pulled one out. I said, "Oh, what's this?" And he said to me, "You've never heard of The Matrix?" So I said, "No. What is it?" He said, "You've never heard? It's a film everyone's been talking about. It's for the last 9 months. Like, where have you been? It's just come out." I was like, "I've never heard of it." I said, "Right, we're watching it now." And we put it on. And it blew me off. Oh, this is brilliant. And that's how far removed I was from what was going on in the culture at that point. I was completely detached from it. So, yeah, and that kind of spilled over into around the time the Fellowship came out, which was, 2000? 2001?
2001, 2002, yeah, something like that, yeah.
Something like that, yeah. So don't use that. I was clueless.
And
didn't know what was going on.
To be fair, you can't even remember what you had for breakfast today. Or second breakfast.
Oh my God, you're
right. But we digress, unlike us. So we have one more leadership card.
Oh, but I should just say on Durin's Song, there is a verse of what is probably Durin's Song on the card. It's 4 lines. That's probably about 1% of the song from the back. But yeah, I'm not going to read that.
No.
Okay. Right. The last card.
So, ever onward.
Yes. Okay, and last card is Ever Onward. It's an event, and it costs 3. Gosh, all right. God, I should have warned you. I'm sorry. Are you okay?
No.
Bear with me, John. It's fine. Okay, very simple. Response. After player's quest unsuccessfully, choose a player. That player does not raise his threat. Now that is a fantastic card.
No.
It is a fantastic card. And I shall tell you for why.
Tell me.
Do you know when I've used this card? It hasn't been, oh God, I've quested unsuccessfully and threat's going to go up a bit, or I better spend 3 resources not to bump up my threat a little bit. No, I've used this to plan not to quest at all on a go. So if you're on a quest where you suddenly got a bunch of enemies and you really don't want to quest anybody and you just want to have a round of fighting, essentially, so you're going to just let whatever havoc goes on in the staging area of that particular go. Doesn't matter if you lose by 1, if you lose by 7, whatever it is. You quest unsuccessfully. You play this. Your threat doesn't go up, and then you can use all of your characters for attacking and defending. This card has saved my bacon on a couple of occasions. And it's not limited to dwarfs either. It should be noted. So yeah, I really like this card.
Well, do you know what? As you started talking there, saying, do you know when I've used this card? The penny dropped hard.
You figured it more of like a cancellation card?
Yeah, I was just thinking, I'm not paying 3 because I don't quest unsuccessfully. Who do you take me for?
Yeah.
And then you said, do you know when I play this?
And he said, yes, I do.
And then I looked at it, and I read it, and I understood. So thank you. No, because actually, genuinely, that has changed my mind about this card. Because my initial thought was, I don't quest unsuccessfully. I'm not paying 3 to stop my threat from going up. But no, I'm in.
Yeah, that's why it costs 3. It's basically, don't quest this guy.
It's amazing.
You still got to take 1 off for your counter. Now, this is a great card for 1 player.
Yeah.
Fantastic. Obviously, bear in mind, if you're playing multiplayer, it does say, after players quest unsuccessfully, choose a player. That player does not raise his threat. So the other player or players would have to raise their threat. So if you're playing multiplayer, bear that in mind, it might not be as good a card as it is in 1 player. But in 1 player, that can be just a real get out of trouble kind of card.
Oh, it's amazing.
Yeah.
So just as I sold you on the Arable Record Keeper, you have sold me on Ever Onward. I mean, that's I mean, there you go.
It's fantastic. It's I want to prove, and then everyone listening is like, yeah, we knew all this about these cards already.
Yeah, obviously.
He is a very stoic-looking dwarf on this card.
He is. He doesn't look very dwarven, but actually, I mean, we know he is a dwarf. He's got a dwarven axe there, and he obviously is a dwarf. But, as you say, this event is not limited to dwarfs. So perhaps that's why they gave him a little bit of a look that he could just be a beefy hero as well.
A little bit of a Viking about him, isn't he?
Yeah. But he's a dwarf, definitely.
Or her.
It's the beards.
It's the beards.
Okay, moving ever onward. If a joke's worth doing, it's worth doing twice, I say.
I think that's 3 times, actually. Never mind. Ever onward.
Okay, onto the tactics sphere. We have an ally attachment and an event. That's nice. So I'm going to jump to the attachment.
That was nice. You've got this nice warm glow about you ever since that Ever Onward card is kind of,
Yeah, no, I'm done. No, I'm going to go to the attachment because, you can't have all the items.
Okay.
So this is the Dwarf axe. It's an item and it's a weapon, and it costs 1. Attached to a dwarf character, restricted. Attached character gets +1 attack. and has a response. After attached character attacks, deal 1 damage to the defending enemy. Now, I think this is fantastic.
Yeah.
This because obviously the +1 attack is great regardless, but then to get a direct damage effect after the attack as well, bypassing any defense, you can really turn some dwarfs into some killing machines. And what was the other axe, the axe that we had in the core set?
The Dwarven Axe.
Dwarven axe. Now, what was that effect?
So that gives you +1 attack. If you attach it to a dwarf character, +2.
Ah, okay.
I think that's it. In
Yeah.
fact, it's right. I've got one right here, actually. Yeah, that's it costs 2. It costs 2 as well. Bear in mind, this costs 1.
Yeah.
It's an item weapon attached to a hero, only to a hero as well.
Yeah.
Restricted, and it says attached hero gains +1 attack, +2 instead if attached hero is a dwarf.
Yeah. Dwarf axe just destroys that, I think.
Where you're guaranteed, even if they got a shield of 10, you're guaranteed to get 1 damage on them.
Yeah. No, yeah, it's great. It's half the price, double the discount.
Half the price. Double the discount. Okay, all right.
No, I mean, no, half the price, double the value is what I should be saying. But it's really, I think it's great.
Yeah.
And of course, it's restricted, so you can only have 2 restricted attachments on any one hero, of course. But let's say you put 2 of these on 1 dwarf. Oh boy.
Oh yeah.
Just 2 extra attack plus anything that Dane's given you, plus then 2 direct damage afterwards. You're a troll killer.
I've got to say, if I've got a very fighty dwarf deck, I'll often have 3 of these and 3 Dwarven Axe in the deck, and just spread them around. Whatever comes out, pop them on a hero or an ally.
Oh well, that's interesting actually. The Dwarf Axe can go on any character, and
exactly.
And the Dwarven Axe is only on heroes.
Only on a hero. Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's worth bearing that in mind as well, because sometimes it's good to give these to a character or 2.
Well, yeah. Well,
up,
actually, that leads us nicely on to the ally then that you get in with the tactics cards here. Do you want to grab him?
Well, thank you so much for. Let's give us a bash. I've never tried to say this out loud before.
See how I skillfully moved him onto you.
It's the veteran of Nandahurian.
Very good.
Oh, that's not bad. I'm keeping that. I'm not going to try to get.
Yeah, no. That's it.
Now,
as long as it doesn't mention it anywhere else, you're golden.
Oh my golly goodness! All right, he's a dwarf. He's a warrior, and he costs 4, so he's expensive.
Yeah.
Quests for 0.
Mm-hmm.
Attacks for 3, so pretty hardy guy. Defense for 2 and 3 hit points.
Yeah, he's tough.
He is tough. A proper hardened veteran.
Yeah.
Veteran of Nandahurian enters play with 1 damage on it.
It. The dwarf's it's now.
I wonder, they must be talking about the card rather than the character.
Must be, but although it's the beards.
Yeah, right. Gollum and dwarves. Who knows? Yeah. So yeah, worth bearing in mind that it does enter with a damage. There are certain cards which we've seen before which can remove damage, etc. But worth bearing that in mind. But still got 2 shield, so still a pretty decent defender, but an excellent attacker.
Incredible.
So hitting for 3. So imagine, for example, one of these guys with Dane boosting him up for 1 with a Dwarf axe on him. Suddenly he's hitting for 5 and giving an extra damage every time he attacks.
Yeah.
So that's, that's pretty fearsome ally to have at your disposal.
I think he's great. I mean, especially, I mean, he's got that, if you are using him to defend for whatever reason, that 2 defense, even with that 1 hit already on him, if you haven't managed to heal him, he's still going to survive for you. He is costly, he is expensive, but I think he's really good.
Yeah, same here. Yeah, he's a stalwart. Yeah, any kind of fighty kind of quest with dwarves, he's going in.
Yeah, I'm with you there. Okay, So we have one more tactics card, and it's an event, and it's Khazad.
Is that because of the exclamation mark?
There's an exclamation mark after each word, and there's an accent over the A, the second A of each word. So I'm going with Khazad.
I think you're correct.
It's a cost of 0. It's an event, and it has an action. It says, choose a dwarf character. Until the end of the phase, that character gets +3 attack.
For a cost of 0.
It's, 3 in every dwarf deck, without a shadow of a doubt. Well, as long as you've got the ability to pay for tactics, of course. So just jumping back to the veteran of Nandahirian there. He's hitting for 3. Maybe he's got a Dwarf axe on him. He's hitting for 4. Maybe Dane is ready. He's hitting for 5. You play Khazad. All of a sudden he's hitting for 8.
Yeah, brutal.
Plus an extra damage that bypasses defense because of the Dwarf axe. I mean, this is all in my mind, but you can see the potential here just with those 3 cards.
Oh, yeah. Fantastic. And like I said, for the veteran of Nandahirian, again, this is if any kind of fighty, well, even if it's not particularly fighty, but if you've got a tactics hero or a Navi's belt or a song, or whatever, I'd suggest putting 3 of these in anyway, because they can get you out of a very tight spot if you need to. I mean, potentially get one guy to take out a really nasty enemy.
Yeah, but then again, you can really see how these cards can work together. So before you know it, you've got some incredible attacking strength in your deck.
Yeah.
Great stuff. So that is all of the cards which fall into spheres, but we do have one little bonus extra neutral card.
I like this one.
Okay.
Because it also has a cost of 0. It's an attachment, and it's for Boots from Erebor. Item.
Yeah.
It's items, strictly speaking, a pair of items.
Well, no, it's a...
It's an item. It's a pair of boots, which is an item. Okay.
Yeah.
And so what does this do? Attached to a dwarf or a hobbit character, so they don't come in adult sizes.
No.
Actually, no, hobbits have big feet, don't they?
Yeah.
Dwarfs must have big feet too, then.
Yeah, but also hobbits famously don't wear boots.
That's true.
Yeah.
But they can do if they wish. Why would they want to do that? I'll tell you why. Attached to a dwarf or a hobbit character, limit 1 Boots from Erebor per character. Attached character gets +1 hit point. So for no cost at all, you can get an extra hit point on a character. This is it's useful anyway to have an extra hit point. The guys I tend to use this with are Dane, who I tend, as I described earlier, need to kind of keep alive. Another one this is really useful for is Gimli. So these aren't restricted. So if you did want a Citadel plate on Gimli or whatever, you could also, bung one of these on him as well. Yeah. And that's an extra hit point he can get, which will give him an extra attack, of course. So yeah, they're freebies. It all comes down to, in my mind, do you want to have those extra cards in your deck, or do you want to keep the deck trim?
Exactly. Yeah. They do fill up your deck, and that was going to be my point. And like I say, they're not restricted, which is good, because of course you still got your 2 hands. But I do like the fact that they do say it's limit one Boots of Erebor per character. You can't squeeze a second pair of boots on.
Just put them on your hands. Come on in.
Or can I get another pair of boots, but maybe in a larger size?
Or hang them around your neck. Yeah, try getting through that.
Yeah, I mean, it's a cost of 0. It's 1 extra hit point. I mean, my biggest problem with it is exactly what you just said. It does fill up your deck where you may not need just that 1 extra hit point. I actually, for dwarfs, you're right. Gimli is a good shout actually for where it could be useful. I also find it's quite useful to put onto a hobbit. If you happen to have Bilbo, you can turn Bilbo into quite a handy defender if you wanted to.
Or any hobbit, because they don't tend to have a lot of hit points anyway.
Yeah, so you're thinking put it on the Keen-Eyed Took.
Yeah, naturally. Well, it depends where he's from. So you said that hobbits don't wear boots, and that's generally, I think, what we believe. Just to read something from the card here, what it says the hobbits of that quarter, the East Farthing, were rather large and heavy-legged, and they wore dwarf boots in muddy weather from the Fellowship of the Ring. So the East Farthing hobbits, who are a bit heavy-legged, let's be honest, they're a bit heavy-legged, and a bit large. So they do wear boots apparently. So there you go.
But only in muddy weather.
Only in muddy weather, of course.
Yeah.
How's the weather today? Muddy. Can you imagine? You know, showing the forecast, and they got a little thing, like pictures of the sun. They should have pictures of mud. There's a muddy front coming in. A westerly.
Are you heading out? You better take your boots. It's going to be muddy later.
Yeah. That could actually be true.
That could be true. Yeah,
actually, yeah. People listening to this thing, I wonder if they live in the country or the city. Yeah, but boots variable, bit of a winner for me. I mean, it's a flexible one, doesn't cost anything. Like I said, if you can have it in your deck and you've got hobbits or dwarves, why not? If you don't want to use up the space, then don't bother. Simple as that.
Yeah, I agree. It's definitely not a must-have for me, but it's if you've got the space, sure, put it in. All right, well, that's all the play cards, and I think it's a pretty decent bunch, actually. And it's, like you said right at the beginning of the podcast, it really shows how these dwarf cards are going to start to work together. I mean, this is just like a taste of things to come when it comes to building dwarf decks. And yeah, I mean, if you don't like dwarfs, then you bang out of luck, because it really is completely dwarf centric. But I think you really start to have a lot of fun with these guys, especially when you first see them, because it's the first time you really can get a lot of synergy between the cards, and it doesn't take much to put these together and start seeing how they play together. You can really start building some powerful decks quite quickly. Yep,
totally. Yeah, dwarves are just fun, I think. It's my experience of them so far. And yeah, I think just look, as ever, learning more about the cards just by discussing them and seeing how you've used certain ones. Definitely try out the ones we haven't tried out too much so far in the coming weeks when we go over the quests in Khazad-dûm.
Yeah, great. Oh, weirdly, the one I'm most excited about is Ever Onward.
There you
go. Okay, so those are all the cards that we get in the deluxe set, and as you mentioned, we are now going to move into going through the quests. So we get 3 quests with each deluxe box. So we'll go. So the next 3 episodes will all be quest episodes. But for the remainder of this episode, we are going to do some of our regular bits of the show. Unless you have more to say about the cards.
No. I think we covered it all.
Okay, so it is time that we did our fact of the week. It seems like ages ago since we did our fact of the week. And the fact this week goes like this. It says, question: In what order is players?
God, read it as it's written.
Okay. Question: In what order is players' optional engagement handled? In what order?
That makes sense. Players' optional engagement being one thing.
In what order is players' optional engagement handled?
Yeah, there you go. Well, yes, good emphasis.
And the answer is the first player has the first opportunity to optionally engage an enemy or pass. After that, each player moving clockwise has the option to engage one enemy. Once each player has had this opportunity, this step is complete. Okay, yeah. So basically, when it comes to optional engagement, the first player chooses first. And I think this is only a fact for... It's basically stopping people from completely manipulating who gets engaged with who.
It's really important to bear in mind, though, if you are playing multiplayer, because I think you and I have come a cropper off this a couple of times, haven't we?
Yeah.
We've said, oh, hold on, we planned, I was going to engage that one, but I can't because you've got to engage that one first, and it can be a bit tricky. If you got more than a couple of enemies out, it gets a bit tricky. So
you have to sort of start thinking, okay, well, actually, I will not optionally engage then, so therefore you get the chance to optionally engage the one that we planned for, and then that one will come to me automatically. I mean, it is useful to know for sure that's the order. Okay, well, then moving on, it's time for our Share the Love segment, where we take a look at some other online resources out there and let you know about them in case you haven't heard of them. And this week, I want to just briefly mention a YouTube channel. Now, this is not specifically Lord of the Rings based, but I love it. And this is the Tolarian Community College. Now, people will know that name if they happen to be Magic the Gathering fans. Now, I don't play Magic the Gathering. I've got nothing against it. I just never play it. And the vast majority of this YouTube channel is about Magic the Gathering. And it is run by a guy who is simply known as The Professor. Now, I love watching this guy. This guy has a lot of character. He's brilliant on screen. And if you like Magic the Gathering, go to his channel and watch everything, although you probably already do. But why I recommend it for our listeners is every few episodes, he will do a feature on sleeves and storage and boxes and playmat tubes, and he goes through all products and he thoroughly reviews them, and he gives very, very honest opinions about everything that he tests. And it's very entertaining. Like I say, he has bags of character. I think as your collection grows, you will very quickly realize that you need to find a way to store all of your cards. And this is a very good place to start to find the products which you think are right for you, and at the same time be thoroughly entertained by him. So that's my tip. So that's
I don't think I've seen this guy before. No, so do you know what? I think you may have shown me one clip from this guy ages ago, and I totally forgot it existed. So yeah, I'll definitely check out the channel.
Yeah, I mean, like I say, the vast majority of it is about Magic the Gathering. But if you are in the market for some binders or some sleeves and you're not too sure which way you should be going, then just search for it on YouTube and then just enjoy yourself for 15 minutes in this guy's company.
And what was it called again?
Oh, no, you
the totalitarian community.
The Tolarian Community College. I'm guessing Tolarian must be something to do with Magic the Gathering.
Okay, right. I thought it was some weird, like, Tolkienarian kind of play on words, but obviously not. If it's based on magic.
I'll put it, as ever, I'll put a link to it in the show notes. But there you go. Yeah, so that's my recommendation for this week. And actually, that pretty much wraps up this episode, unless you have anything else you want to
add. No, I don't think so.
That's great. Well, okay, so as we mentioned several times, from this point onwards, we'll be going into 3 quests in a row as we go through the Mines of Moria in Khazad-dûm. So we'll go off and play through those. But in the meantime, if you do want to get in touch with us, there are a few ways you can contact us. You can contact us directly via email, which is... what is it?
Lord of the Rings.
Oh, no, not Lord of the Rings.
No, not Lord of the Rings. Yeah, Lord of the Rings at Tolkien.com.
You can contact us directly via email, which is lateoftherings@gmail.com. You can contact us via Twitter, which is @lateoftherings, and
Board Game Geek thread.
And there is the Board Game Geek.
What episode are we on? I finally learnt it.
And there is the Board Game Geek thread, which, as ever, there will be a link to in the show notes.
Hooray!
So, with that, all it leaves me to say is thanks once again for listening. And until next time, take care out there, and goodbye.
Bye.